All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. We've been doing a deep dive into some massive year-to-date headline news trends, and we are unpacking an absolutely incredible piece of source material today. We're looking at the 905 Wood Digital Refinery. And this isn't just a story about waste management. It's really a fascinating look at how a single, off-the-shelf smartphone is actively untangling a multi-million-dollar tariff crisis right across the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor.
We are actually going to skip our usual agenda today because I want to jump straight into a staggering problem we found in the current news trends. Get this. Ontario ships 3.46 million tons of municipal solid waste, or MSW, across the border to Michigan landfills every single year. To put that into perspective, that single flow makes up 14.35% of all waste disposed of in the entire state of Michigan. So the big question is, how exactly does a standard $999 smartphone prevent this massive cross-border export from turning into a total logistical and economic nightmare? Usually when we think of border enforcement and environmental compliance, we picture, massive infrastructure, huge teams of inspectors with clipboards and just endless red tape. But the reality playing out right now, it is vastly different and infinitely more agile. The source actually paints this really vivid picture for us. Imagine a driver standing at a dusty demolition yard, a Google Pixel 10 Pro in one hand, and a massive load of chaotic construction waste right in front of them. This single, hyper-focused moment, a phone making a critical, legally binding compliance decision right at the edge of a dumpster, is the entire premise of 905 Wood's Digital Refinery workflow. It's just an incredible mental image, right? All this messy, chaotic MSW and construction debris being perfectly managed by the quiet intelligence of a handheld device. And what really makes this entire system viable is the speed. 500 milliseconds. The AI completes its complex compliance classification in under half a second. The source calls this the sub-second rule, which basically ensures the driver doesn't even notice a delay. The camera fires, the neural network processes the image, and boom, a decision is made almost instantly. The load either advances into a clean wood premium stream or it gets shunted into a mixed wasteline, all in the absolute blink of an eye. Okay, so let's move into Section 1, the looming border crisis, why the half-second matters. To understand why this matters so much, look at this timeline. Ontario is staring down a total landfill capacity cliff by 2034, which has been heavily driven by provincial policies under Premier Doug Ford. Add to that the 2029 rewood ban and Michigan's proposed tipping fee hikes. But the most immediate threat, the one making headlines right now, is the looming Section 122 tariff shift hitting in August 2026. This shift is directly tied to the CUSMA and USMCA trade policies that originated from Donald Trump's administration in Washington. So as you can imagine, this timeline creates an absolute pressure cooker for logistics companies trying to legally move material across that border. And here's the kicker. Without bulletproof documentation proving a load is clean wood under those specific USMCA exemptions, exporters face a massive 15% surcharge. If a driver just eyeballs a load of wood at 7 a.m. and casually calls it mostly clean, that lack of rigorous verification turns a simple cross-border trip into a $600 per load mistake. The tariff regime heavily rewards defensibility now, and the industry is totally desperate for a way to instantly generate a verified certificate of origin PDF right there at the yard, ready for the border crossing. Which brings us to Section 2, decoding the digital refinery, the hold-to-seal process. The application's UI/UX workflow is brilliantly simple for the user, but it is highly complex under the hood. The driver's Pixel 10 Pro, running on Android 16, uses a Gemma 4 AI model to categorize the waste. Once the classification lands, the driver just holds a button for 2 seconds. This triggers the Titan M2 hardware root of trust to stamp a tamper-evident audit record. The Digital Refinery app instantly transforms this into a request for quote and a court-admissible PDF document, completely locking in GPS and timestamps. Suddenly, you have this flawless chain of custody before the truck even leaves the yard. Now, what's really wild about this is that the Transformer AI inference runs entirely on the device. Utilizing Google's LightArt AI stack and the Tensor G5 Edge TPU, there is zero cloud dependence, none. This means it works flawlessly even out at rural demolition sites where you have terrible cell service. The smartphone doesn't need to ping some server in California to make a legally binding compliance decision. It does all the heavy lifting locally, right there at the edge. All right, let's jump to Section 3, the precautionary principle, catching radioactive trash. Now, going through the source materials, they constantly ask this hypothetical radioactive trash question. And honestly, it's a vital one.
Imagine a piece of wood treated with chromated copper arsenate, right? But it's hiding under a decade of surface oxidation, so it just looks like your standard weathered gray pine. If that gets incorrectly classified as clean wood, the environmental and legal consequences are absolutely disastrous. So how on earth does a smartphone catch what looks like normal wood?
Well, to combat this, the Digital Refinery has a built-in architectural failsafe. If the AI's confidence drops into what they call the 70 to 85% amber band, the load automatically escalates. It gets kicked right up to a much larger 4.5 billion parameter AI model known as the visual fallacy guard. If the two models disagree, the system just stops. The load is immediately staged for physical cross-validation using X-ray fluorescence and near-infrared sensors. It is literally built into the architecture that a hazardous load cannot slip through on an optimistic guess. The system always defaults to intense physical scrutiny whenever there's any ambiguity. A human and the AI would both have to completely fail in consensus to breach the compliance gate. It's just an incredibly robust safeguard designed to protect the integrity of the market from bad actors or even just simple honest mistakes.
So let's talk about the money in Section 4, the economics of AI, decoupling compliance costs.
Think about a traditional human compliance officer. They make up to 80 grand a year, they work an 8-hour shift, and naturally, they get tired. They are highly susceptible to fatigue, which, let's be real, is exactly when ambiguous loads slip through. On the flip side, this $995 smartphone runs 24/7, catching mistakes a fatigued human might miss, and the marginal cost of the next classification decision basically approaches zero. Take a look at this table. It beautifully illustrates the financial stakes here. By using Edge AI to legally verify wood as clean, companies avoid massive penalties. The crushing circle levy drops from $60 a ton for mixed waste all the way down to just $5 a ton for clean wood. The wood class dictates the levy, and the smartphone locks in that lowest legal rate right at the bin, providing immediate, hard dollar ROI for the logistics operator. That precise sub-second classification translates to a staggering savings of $1,053 per single 19.15-ton mothership load. Now multiply that across the 3.46 million tons of municipal solid waste crossing the border to Michigan annually, and it completely rewrites the unit economics of waste disposal. It literally turns compliance from a massive cost center into a major competitive advantage. And finally, Section 5, the sentient bridge, securing the circular economy.
905 Wood actually calls this whole system the sentient bridge. It is an intelligent, digitally verifiable corridor connecting chaotic, unpredictable construction waste to the incredibly strict high-purity requirements of the pyrogenic biocarbon market. By operationalizing the Google Pixel 10 Pro and the LightArt AI stack, 905 Wood is actively securing Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. They are guaranteeing pristine inputs for advanced manufacturing. And with next-generation hardware already on the horizon, like the Pixel 11 Pro and the Tensor G6 chip, these devices will evolve from simple classifiers into near real-time legal adjudicators. They'll be able to instantly reason about constantly shifting Washington trade tariffs and local regulations. The smartphone is getting smarter, and the entire cross-border corridor is getting infinitely more auditable.
So, I want to leave you with this final, slightly provocative thought. As AI begins literally enforcing international borders and complex environmental regulations right from the palm of a hand, what other chaotic industry is about to be completely rewritten? We are witnessing the very beginning of decentralized, edge AI compliance here. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep looking at how everyday tech is solving these massive global bottlenecks. Catch you next time.